In this video, I'm going to show you the most asked Norwegian Cruise Line interview questions and help you plan really great answers to these. So let's look at firstly how you actually succeed at a Norwegian interview. So what's the key things you need to get right? Firstly, and obviously, make sure you adopt formal and professional dress to make a good first impression. Ensure that you have studied Norwegian Cruise Lines and you have the information in your memory. And I will show you the key facts that you need to take to your interview to make sure that you're well prepared. The next thing, you need to show that you've got what they're looking for and that you have got the skills that they need. And in this video, I will show you how you can include that in your answers. The next thing, you want to be clear that it's definitely not a holiday. Working on a cruise ship is a very difficult, busy job with long hours, and they don't want you talking about your love to travel and that you're wanting to work for a cruise line because you're going to get to see the world. These are all great perks, but it's not really what they're looking for. The next thing is you definitely need to know what questions most commonly come up, and then you need to have good answers ready for these. So in this video, I'll present the key questions that you need to know, and you'll have answers ready to go for those by the end of the video. So let's look at the really important question, which is, what can you tell me about Norwegian Cruise Lines? And if you're going for an interview, you need to know the key facts, and I will present these here. So the first thing is you need to get the basics right. You have to have the basic knowledge, and I'll show you how you can cover that. Then you need to prove that you actually took some time to prepare, and I'm going to give you the facts that you can take and give you some recommended reading to extend that and make sure you got lots of knowledge. And then I'm going to drop in a few things that you could say in your interview that will impress them and show that you've went that extra mile. So let's look at how you answer this question. So the first thing you do is just describe the business very simply. They are an international cruise line. That's what they do. Then you can talk about the fact that they're led by the American market. So the majority of their customers come from North America, and that's the focus of their business currently. They have very loyal customers, and they try to create that by having a great experience and having people book repeatedly with them. So building customer loyalty is a key part of their strategy. They offer all-inclusive experience options that are very popular with their customers. They have quite iconic funnels, so you can recognize from a distance that that's a Norwegian Cruise Line ship by just looking at the funnel on the ship. They have private islands that they take their customers to. So that's things like Harvest Cay and Great Stirrup Cay that are their famous islands that are unique to Norwegian Cruise Lines. You should, of course, make sure that you can name their largest ships. So look up what Norwegian Cruise Lines owns, look at their largest ships, memorize the top three. Of course, that changes, so I don't want to put them here because you need to actually look that up because it'll change every so often. The next fact you need to know is that they were founded in 1966. And these are the two founders. You may recognize Ted Arison was also the founder of Carnival Cruise Line, and he is one of the giants in the industry. You should also know that their first ship was called the Sunward, and it actually ran a Southampton to Gibraltar car ferry, and that's the beginning of the business. They were also a fly cruise pioneer. That means that they were offering cheap flights that would match up with the cruise ship. And so one way might be flying, the other way might be on a cruise ship, and they pioneered that and were the first to offer it. They often do things that support various charities. So I'd look up what have they done in terms of their corporate social responsibility, what have they done to support charities, and just have a little bit of that knowledge there ready. Another great tip to really go one step further in your preparation is this is a publicly traded listed company on the stock market, so they publish their annual reports, and they also put out some investor presentations that describe their strategy and try and explain to perhaps new people thinking about investing in the business what they actually do and how the business works and what their focuses are. And by reading that, it really helps you get familiar with the business, and you can mention in your interview that you actually read that, and that goes one step further to impressing them. So that's how you plan for this question. Feel free to take loads of notes from this or screenshot it, and you've got the key facts ready for your interview. The next question is around safety. They often ask some sort of safety question to check that you've got the right values and you're going to do the right thing, because they need to trust that their crew are going to behave in a safe way. So they could ask a question like, what would you do if you saw someone not following safety procedures? And you want to demonstrate the right values and then do the right thing. So what you first say is that crew have a duty of care to all passengers on board. That is part of your role. You are responsible for helping make sure that everyone is safe and take that seriously. And you say, I take my safety responsibilities very seriously. You're showing off the right values. The next thing you say is that crew and passengers not following safety procedures puts everyone at risk of harm. So you're very clear on the fact that not following safety procedures is dangerous. You're showing off the right values. Then you say, I would never ignore a safety breach. I would intervene to keep everyone safe when it's appropriate to do so. And then after this, I would report the incident in line with Norwegian Cruise Lines policies. You're going to follow the policies. You're going to be very clear that safety is important, and you're not going to allow safety breaches to persist. That this is something that everyone has to take seriously. Follow those steps, and you'll get through this question really well. The next question they ask about is, what is your greatest strength? And they often ask about the greatest weakness, and we'll look at how you can answer both of these. So fundamentally, for a greatest strength, that has to be a significant strength. Pick something that's actually important. I'll tell you some things that you might want to say in your interview. Then you want to back it up with evidence or examples. So think about any time that you've used this strength, or if your strength has got a qualification associated with it or a certificate, now is a good time to mention it, and you can bring those to your interview. Make sure it's relevant. So if you're, for example, a really brilliant chess player, that's great for you, but it's not really going to help you be fantastic at the cruise line. So don't talk about that. Focus on something that is actually really important for your job. And then you want to make sure that your example of a strength proves that you're a good hire. The point of this question is to actually convince them to hire you. That's the point of the interview. That's what you're trying to do. And the way that you answer it is obviously very simple. You say, one of my greatest strengths is, say what your strength is. I'll give you some suggestions. Then previously I've used this strength too. Think about your previous experience. How has being good at this made you great at your job? And then you link it back to Norwegian Cruise Lines and you say, while working at Norwegian, this strength will, how is it going to make you better at your job? And if you follow that structure, you're going to cover all the points that they want. Some good ideas is previous cruise ship experience. Show off that you're experienced, you know how to do these jobs, you can fit in very quickly, make a very quick impact. That you've worked in customer service for a long time, you're really good at it, you're really good at working with, for example, difficult customers. You talk about that sort of thing, that you're hardworking, you've got great attention to detail. These would all be good strengths to use at a Norwegian Cruise Line interview. Then on the flip side, they'll ask about your biggest weakness, and there's certain things they're looking for in this and certain things you have to avoid. So the way that you tackle this is you've got to show that you know what you need to develop. And the way you do that is make sure you pick a real weakness. You have to pick something that is actually a weakness. The next thing you need to do is talk about what you're going to do to fix it. So make a suggestion about how you could overcome that. You may be looking to take a course. You may want to include that in your kind of development planning, or you may want to be mentored or do something that would specifically help you to overcome that. Then you could think about something that is definitely not important to your job. So whatever your job is, pick something that is not important or something that you're not even going to be expected to do at all in your job. But maybe if you're promoted in the future, years down the line, you might have to do it, so you need to work on it. So you could think about something like, I'm just a total perfectionist, which is a classic thing that a lot of people say, and that is the wrong way to answer it. They absolutely hate it. It shows you don't know what you need to develop and you're trying to dodge the question. It doesn't go down very well. And on the flip side, saying something that's actually important to your job or revealing a real weakness could put them off hiring you. So for example, companies I work for always get formal complaints because I smell really bad. That's going to stop you getting the job. Don't use a weakness that actually will have any effect on you getting the job. When you answer it, very simply, a weakness that I'm aware of is, say your weakness. Don't talk about why it's a problem. Don't complain about your weakness. Don't explain why it's going to make you terrible at your job. Just say what it is and move on swiftly. You then say, I've been working on this by, and say one or two ways that you could make this weakness go away over the next few years. Some suggestions of what you might think about is spelling, if you're in a job that doesn't involve very much writing, report writing, if you're someone that doesn't actually have to write reports anymore, but might have to in the future if you are promoted. If you can only speak English, that is a weakness. And it's a weakness that many people may have, but would be something really great. And especially working on a cruise ship where lots of people speak lots of different languages, that is something you're really eager to work on. Saying no, if you're someone that likes to say yes and maybe takes on too much, that you actually have to think about what you can actually do. Delegation, if you're not applying for a management role, and public speaking, if you're not going to do any public speaking. These are all weaknesses that you could take to your interview and just suggest one or two things you could do to overcome it, and you've got a great answer. The next one is, How would you deal with a difficult, angry, or upset guest on board? And they may ask any of those, but it doesn't matter. You just answer them in basically the same way. And you're showing off, firstly, the right values and then doing the right thing. So what you start by saying is, I provide excellent service to all guests at all times. So you're very clear about the fact it doesn't matter if they're difficult, annoying, they're winding you up, they're being horrible. Doesn't matter. You're going to provide great service because you are the professional here. The next thing you say is, I always remain calm and behave professionally as a brand representative. When you're working with Norwegian Cruise Line, everything you do is representing the brand and you take that seriously. The next thing you say is, I de-escalate the situation as appropriate. So if the guests may be shouting, they're very upset, they're very angry, your first focus is to calm them down and not make the situation even worse. Then you say, I listen to the guest to understand what may have went wrong and what resolution they need. So the first thing you need to do is actually find out, what is the problem? What does this guest want? What is upsetting them? And then from that, you can figure out what to do. Then you do a little bit of reassurance. You say, at all times, I'll follow Norwegian Cruise Line policies and my training. That's a little bit of reassurance. And then you sum it up by saying, my goal is to resolve the cause of difficulty, ensuring a positive guest experience. That's fundamentally what you're trying to do. So you're reassuring them that you're going to do the right thing. You're showing you've got the right values that they're looking for. And then you're rounding it off by saying, my goal is to just fix the problem, make it go away. That's a really great answer. Let's look at another question that they ask very frequently, and one of the most important is, why do you want to work for Norwegian Cruise Lines? And I'll give you a list of the things you want to think about, including in your answer, and then some phrases that you can use. And this is definitely one that it pays to bullet point out. Make sure you've got a planned answer ready to go, because when you go in your interview and they ask this, if you've actually thought about it, you're going to have a really, really good answer, and it's going to impress them a lot more. So think about what makes this cruise line right for you. There's lots of cruise lines that you could apply for. Why is this the right one for you? Then think about the relevant skills. What skills have you got that will make you good at the job? Wanting the job and being good at it is two things that you can link together. Then the right experience. So link it to any previous experience that basically says, I'm doing the same thing that I've done before and I really like doing that and I'm going to get to do it here. That's a great way to think about it. Think about growth and progression opportunities. If you are ambitious, basically express that and say that this is somewhere where you believe that your career could develop. And then be enthusiastic. And if you've got an answer that you've learned and you've practiced, you're going to be able to focus on delivering it really well rather than thinking up an answer on the spot, which is not going to go well. So definitely plan this one out. Some phrases you might like to use is that this is the best cruise brand for me, and explain why. Research Norwegian Cruise Lines, get a feel for what they do, and explain why it's going to be the best cruise brand. Say that you love to be at sea. Avoid talking about this being a sort of holiday and traveling and seeing the world, but just saying that you like being at sea, that this is somewhere that you like to work. You could also talk about that you love interacting with guests, that you love meeting lots of new people, you love meeting new customers, new guests. The constant change of people is really quite exciting. And also you do enjoy forming longer term relationships with the loyal guests that keep coming back and getting to know people. You could talk about them having an excellent reputation, and anything to back that up would be good. If you know they're a good employer, you've heard they're a good employer for someone else. A good phrase to also use is that they're a perfect match for my skills. Talk about what you've done before, what you're good at. You're good at, say, customer service. If you're applying for a role in a restaurant, you're really good at doing that. You've got lots of experience. That's a good reason why you would want to work here. You could say that you've got extensive cruise ship or customer service experience, whichever one that you've got, that could link to it. You want an active and a busy job. You don't want to be sitting around. Cruise ships are very busy places for staff. You love working in a team. That's a good thing to say. That you see this as a long-term potential career. And one of the reasons why is it's a large and diverse company. There could be lots of opportunities over time to move between different cruise ships and advance a career. And you see that as a really great potential that could be available to you. So definitely plan this one out. Feel free to pause this, go through the slide, bullet point out maybe 5-6 things you're going to say, and practice saying it to yourself, and you'll have a great answer and you'll be really confident in it. Before we finish, here are some questions that you might want to ask Norwegian Cruise Lines at the end of the interview. So they'll say, do you have any questions for us? And the correct answer is yes. And I'll give you some suggestions of what you might want to ask. So you could say, what do you personally like most about working for Norwegian Cruise Lines? And find out what they like about the company and share in their enthusiasm. You could ask what progression and training opportunities could potentially be available to a high-performing Norwegian Cruise Lines hire in the next 3 to 5 years. You might want to ask, is there anything you would suggest a new hire to Norwegian do prior to starting to ensure they're well prepared for day one and make commitments to do anything that they suggest? You could say, I'm of course very interested in the position with Norwegian, therefore I would be interested to know the next steps in your hiring process. You probably do want to know that anyway, so you might as well ask it. And then you want to end it positively. This is really important to make a good final impression. Thank them, be really sincere in the way that you thank them for the interview, and remind them that you're really interested in the job and this is the right place for you. Things to avoid: don't ask for time off, don't ask to take a holiday before you've started, and don't ask immediately if you're applying to one particular ship or one particular brand that's owned by Norwegian. Don't ask, can I move to this other brand? I'm applying for this ship, but I'd rather work on this one. Not a good conversation to be having before you've even got the job. So I hope this was helpful to you. Please post in the comments what questions Norwegian Cruise Lines asked you in your interview. And finally, thank you very much for watching.